Hello everyone and welcome to Mr. Riddler's Math Lessons. This is where we're going to be coming to find the video lessons for all of the notes that we're going to be going through in class. Remember, the videos are here so you can move ahead, but if you're still having questions from the previous lesson or the previous homework, this is your time to ask me questions in class. So please, if you're ready to go on to the next lesson, watch this lesson. And if you're still having questions from the previous lesson or the previous practice questions, please make sure you are getting those questions answered. Now, with that being said, today we're going to be looking at order of operations. Now, order of operations, we sometimes refer to it as Bedmas or Pedmas, and we're going to go through what each letter represents here. And then we're going to go into some practice questions so that you can see how it's actually done and how it's followed. So for the B, what B represents is brackets. So whenever you see brackets in an equation, that is what's going to be addressed first. So that's where you're going to start, anything inside of the brackets. Now the next thing that we're going to be looking at is exponents. And we were previously working on exponents in the last lesson. Following exponents is division and multiplication. And an important thing to note for division and multiplication, it's always going to be whichever comes first in the order of left to right. So if division is written before multiplication, according to the left to right rule, then we would start with division and vice versa. And the last thing that we're going to be looking at in the order of operation is going to be addition and subtraction. Now, addition and subtraction follows the same rule that division and multiplication follows, and whichever comes first, left to right, is what you solve first. Now remember, at the beginning of this video, I also talked about this being referred to as Bedmas. Now the difference here would be instead of the B, you would have the P there, and it would stand for parentheses, which is the same thing as the brackets when we're talking about it. Now let's try this out to see where our understanding is at and make sure that we're following the correct order of operations. So for question 1, we have 4 subtract and then inside the brackets 8 subtract 3. Now if we're following Bedmas or the order of operations, we know that the first thing that we should be looking for is, are there brackets? Now in this situation there is, and inside the brackets we have 8 subtract 3. So 8 subtract 3 is going to get us 5, and then we'll continue with the 4 minus in front of it. The next step is to do, well, exponents. Is there any exponents in here? No, there isn't. Is there any division in here? No, there isn't. Multiplication? No. Adding? No. And subtraction, this is our last part. So 4 subtract 5 will get us minus 1. And that will be our final answer. In example 2 here, we have 8 subtract negative 2 divided by 5. Now, in order to do this, we first must do the top section. This is going to act as if it was brackets. Now, I know the division comes before the subtraction, but due to it set up this way, whenever the number is set up on the bottom over top like a fraction, it's the same as doing brackets. So you must address the top before you can go into the division. Now, 8 subtract negative 2, well, you have a negative and a negative here. So what we learned last lesson is that's going to become a positive. So really now we have 8 plus 2 over 5. If we do 8 plus 2, we get 10 over 5. And our last thing to do is finish this off by doing the 10 divided by 5, which gives us a final answer of 2. Moving on to question 3 here, we have 4 subtract 2 multiplied by negative 3. Now these brackets represent multiplication here. So our first thing that we want to do is find out what is 2 multiplied by negative 3. 2 multiplied by negative 3 will get us negative 6. Remember, there's only one negative in this situation. We're paying attention to this information right here. So what we have is 4 subtract negative 6. Now, we have a negative and a negative in here. Remember, creates a positive. So we have 4 plus 6, and 4 plus 6 is a 10. In example 4 here, we have 8 plus 3 multiplied by 2 subtract 1. Now, following our order of operation, first thing you look for is brackets. There's no brackets involved here. Then we look for exponents. There's no exponents involved. Next thing we're looking for is division. There's no division, but there is multiplication. By completing the multiplication first, we can look at 3 multiplied by 2. Well, 3 times 2 creates 6. And we'll bring the 8 plus down, subtract 1 down as well. The next thing we're looking at is 8 plus 6 subtract 1. Following the order of operations, we have addition and subtraction left, and it's in order of left to right is the way that we solve this. Well, going left to right, we'd look at 8 plus 6 first, which would give us 14. And then we move our subtract 1 down. And 14 subtract 1 will give us 13 for our final answer. For the next part of this lesson, we're going to look at Bedmas with powers and exponents. Now, in the first part, we looked at all of the order of operations, but we didn't specifically look at powers and exponents. This time, we're going to take that more in depth and solve for these. So the first part we're looking at is in brackets, 4 subtract 2, closing the brackets, to the power of 2. Following the order of operations, we want to start with B first, which is our brackets. So inside our brackets, we have 4 subtract 2. 4 subtract 2 gives us 2, and then we have to the power of 2. Well, if we do 2 to the power of 2, it'll give us 4 as our final answer. Remember, it goes brackets, then exponents. For question 2 here, in brackets, we have 2 subtract 4 to the power of 4. Now again, we're starting inside the brackets. 2 subtract 4 gives us a negative 2 to the power of 4. Negative 2 to the power of 4. Remember, we want to pay attention to, is it an even exponent or an odd number of exponents when we're looking at negative numbers. Because it's an even number for the exponent, our final answer is going to be positive. And that'll be a positive 16. For question 3 here, we have 6 subtract 2 squared. Now there's no brackets or parentheses here. So what we're first going to look at is our exponents. So 6 is not going to be addressed right now. We're going to look at 2 squared. Well, 2 squared gets us 4. Now we're left with 6 subtract 4, which will result in our final answer of 2. In example 4 here, we have 5 subtract 4 multiplied by negative 1 to the power of 0. First thing that we want to look for is brackets. Well, the brackets are only there to represent the multiplication, so we're not going to have to do anything with the brackets right now. The next thing that we're doing in order of operation is our exponents. We do have an exponent, which is a 0, so we have to address that first. If we look at the -1 to the power of 0, the 5 subtract 4 stays, and -1 to the power of 0 will give us 1. Next thing that we want to do is we're going to have our multiplication. 5 subtract stays where it is, and 4 multiplied by 1 just becomes 4. Now 5 subtract 4 equals 1, and that's our final answer. In example 5 here, we have 8 subtract 2, and in the brackets 3 plus 1, closing the brackets, squared. So again, going by the order of operations, brackets come first, so we want to address this part here. 8 subtract 2 comes down, and 3 plus 1 makes 4 to the power of 2. Continue this over here. The next thing that we want to address is our exponent. So we're on B, then E. So we're going to look at the exponent of 2. The 8 subtract 2 comes there again, and 4 squared gives us 16. Next thing we want to look for is there division or multiplication? Well, the bracket represents multiplication, so 8 subtract 2 is not going to be dealt with right now. We want to look at 2 multiplied by 16. So 2 multiplied by 16 makes 32. And our last step is to look for, is there any addition or subtraction? Well, we have subtraction of 8 subtract 32, which makes -24. For example 6 here, we have 3 cubed plus 2 cubed. Both exponents are 3. There's no brackets that we have to address, so we can look at the exponents first. 3 cubed gives us 27, plus 2 cubed gives us 8. All we're left with now is 27 plus 8, which results in 35. For example 7, we have a lot going on that we have to pay attention to here. We have -1 multiplied by -1 to the power of 3, multiplied by -1 to the power of 4, multiplied by -1 plus -1 to the power of 2. First thing that we need to address is the exponents, because all the brackets here represent multiplication. So first thing is, this is continuing down because there's no exponent on it, so it stays -1. Then we have -1 inside brackets to the power of 3. We know that this is an odd number for the exponent, so it's going to stay negative, and it'll be -1. Next, we have -1 in brackets to the power of 4. Because it's an even number, it's going to become 1. This part continues down because there's no exponent on it. Plus, we have -1 inside brackets to the power of 2. And because it's an even number, it's going to become a 1. Now that we've addressed the exponents, we can look at addressing all of the different multiplication. And we'll go in order of left to right. So -1 times -1 will make +1. positive 1 times positive 1 will still stay as 1. And then positive 1 times negative 1 creates a negative 1. So all this becomes negative 1. And we still have the plus 1 at the end. So we have negative 1 plus 1, which finishes us off and gives us a 0. In example 8 here, we have 4 squared multiplied by negative 1 multiplied by negative 2 divided by negative 4. Now, following the order of operations, we have to look for brackets. These brackets represent multiplication, so there's nothing to do there. Next, we look for exponents. Well, we have an exponent of 2 on the 4, so that's what we're going to have to look for first. 4 squared becomes 16, and everything else comes down. Next thing that we want to look for is multiplication and division. Now remember, there's a special rule about multiplication and division, and whatever comes first, left to right. So we have multiplication coming before the division, so we have to address that first. 16 times negative 1 becomes negative 16 multiplied by negative 2 divided by negative 4. Still, again, we have to go left to right, and we have multiplication first. Negative 16 multiplied by negative 2 becomes 32 divided by 4. Sorry, negative 4. Bring this back up so we have some more room. 32 divided by negative 4 becomes negative 8 as our final answer. For the last example question here today, we have in brackets 5 subtract 2 to an exponent of 2, subtract 3 outside brackets of 4 subtract 6. Now, first thing that we need to address is our brackets. So we need to look at this part, and we need to look at this part. 5 subtract 2 gives us 3. Don't forget to write your exponent of 2. Subtract 3 comes down, and we have 4 subtract 6. 4 subtract 6 results in a negative 2. Next thing that we want to look for after the brackets is our exponents. Well, we have an exponent of 2 on the first 3, so we have 3 squared. 3 squared gives us 9. Subtract 3 multiplied by negative 2. Next, we're looking for division. We don't have any division. Then we look for multiplication. We have multiplication of negative 3 multiplied by negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 will give us positive 6. Because remember, if you have an even number of negatives, it becomes positive. Your last step is to do the addition of 9 plus 6, which gives us 15. Now that'll complete our lesson for Bedmas. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask me in class. And if there's anything from the homework that you don't get a chance to ask me in class today, please make sure you send me a message over Teams. And as always, have a good day.